In this Wolong Fallen Dynasty guide, we're going to be covering the Unparalleled Spear build, which is a tank build. This is a very forgiving build, making it perfect for newcomers that want to go through history without having to worry too much about getting killed in a single strike. For this build, we'll be focusing on the Wood Virtue, which significantly increases our health in combination with heavy armor to greatly reduce the physical damage we take. In addition, we'll be adding some healing spells and a Divine Beast that heals us to make us even tankier. The negative aspect of this build is its lack of mobility and rather low damage. We'll mitigate that though by equipping the Unparalleled Spear, which has a unique martial art called Whistling Vortex. When used, this martial art allows you to spin forward, dealing damage, tracking down your marked enemy. You can spam this martial art to stay on top of them. We'll also be using the Inner Beast spell to increase the accumulation of Divine Beast gauge and absorb vitality to heal while we attack. When it comes to the stats for this build focuses on the Wood Virtue as I mentioned earlier, but it's also necessary to assign some points into Earth and Fire Virtues. You should first focus on Wood and then assign enough points into Earth to adjust your weight proportion. At level 72, your stats should look something like this. 50 Wood Virtue. This is our main stat, providing a huge boost to health, increasing our weapon damage and our lightning damage. 8 Fire Virtue. This is required to unlock the Amplify Damage spell. And finally, 14 Earth Virtue. We need just enough to maintain our weight proportion just below 100%. This will depend on the armor you're currently wearing, so you might have to shift this a point or two in either direction. Next, we'll take a look at what spells we use for this build. First is Lightning Weapon. For a certain period of time, enchants your melee weapon with lightning. This scales with the Wood Virtue, greatly increasing our damage output, and helps us deal elemental damage that goes through enemy guard. Inner Beast increases the accumulation of the Divine Beast gauge for a certain period of time. This spell greatly increases the amount of beast gauge you gain when dealing damage to enemies or when getting hit. Make sure to keep it active at all times. Absorb Vitality. You and your nearby allies can restore HP upon dealing damage to enemies. This spell allows us to be more aggressive, since we'll be healing back a portion of the damage that we deal. And finally, Amplify Damage. For a certain period of time, increase both the damage you deal to enemies and receive from them. This is specifically useful before Fatal Strikes. There's a small window before the enemy recovers. You can use that time to cast this spell, and then perform the Fatal Strike for better results. Next, we'll take a look at the Divine Beast we used for this build, and we used Qi Long as our Divine Beast, which you can obtain fairly early on in the game. Qi Long's favor increases your HP by plus 18 and provides plus 2.4% HP restoration, which works perfectly in combination with our Absorb Vitality spell. You also get reduced spirit consumption to cast Inner Beast spells. The Divine Beast summon creates a pool on the ground that will heal you while you stand over it. The pool lasts a very long time and will keep you at full health even if you're getting hit. This is very useful during boss fights and helps you reduce the amount of Dragon Pot uses. If you want to play more offensive, you can use the Divine Beast Restoration instead of summons, which provides lightning damage and damage reduction, allowing you to go all in without having to worry for a couple of seconds. Moving on to the equipment section, first we'll take a look at our main weapon, which is the Unparalleled Spear. As previously mentioned, the Whistling Vortex martial art found on it will be our main way of attacking enemies, and it compensates for a lack of mobility. You can acquire this spear by increasing your relationship with Zhao Yun to Sworn Brother. If you don't have the spear yet, you can also use any other spear that has the Monkey's Wisdom martial art, which acts similarly to Whistling Vortex. For special effects on your weapon, you'll want to slot Lightning Attack Power to further increase elemental damage, Divine Beast Gauge Gain to further increase how quickly we can cast Qi Long, and damage dealt. Your backup melee weapon will be the Curve-Headed Glaive. We're only really interested in wielding this weapon to gain all the set bonuses together with the complete Dauntless Tiger Servant set. But other than that, it's not even important to use this weapon in combat. When it comes to ranged weapons, you can basically use any ranged weapon you want to use, but you can still get good use out of ranged weapon special effects. Equip your ranged weapon with the following special effects. Enemy Detection, very useful to see enemies on the minimap and track them. Flag Detection, great for finding flags and increasing your fortitude. Lightning Attack Power, and Damage Dealt. All of these will benefit your character, so try and put these on your ranged weapon if possible. When it comes to armor, you can equip any type of heavy armor you want, just make sure you keep your weight proportion below 100% so you're still mobile enough to be efficient in combat. I personally recommend the Dauntless Tiger Servant set as it provides very high physical resistance and great set bonuses. You can acquire this set by increasing your relationship with Han Dang to Sworn Brother. While using its corresponding pieces, you'll get the Unflinching Bravery set bonus providing the following benefits: minus damage received, guard spirit consumption, power gain upon martial arts, and damage dealt in perfect condition. When it comes to the special effects you want to add to your armor, you'll want to include martial arts damage to increase the damage of Whistling Vortex. You'll want lightning attack power in order to increase your damage with lightning, and Divine Beast gauge gain in order to be able to use your Divine Beast more frequently. As it is, the build is fairly complete, so you can use any accessory you want from main and secondary. Just consider trying to gain any benefit for the build, such as spirit gauge gain, martial arts damage, etc. Some final tips for this build. Use your Divine Beast Resonation and Summon as often as possible. The Inner Beast spell allows you to quickly refill the bar, so don't be afraid to use it whenever necessary. When you break an enemy's spirit gauge, there's a small delay before it recovers. You can usually cast 1 or 2 buffs depending on the situation. You usually want to use Inner Beast, as you'll most likely fill half of the Divine Beast bar by just performing the Fatal Strike alone. Even if you are really tanky, you should still use Deflect to avoid Fatal Strikes and to deal with agile enemies. Deflecting boss critical blows is imperative to break their spirit gauge. The Divine Beast summon will revive and heal your fallen allies. This can come in very handy for boss fights. Make sure to summon them if you're having trouble with a particular boss. You can bypass the spirit gauge delay after using your martial arts if you've reached the bottom end of your spirit gauge. To do this, first perform martial arts until your spirit gauge is completely depleted. Once you land, perform a quick light strike. This will give you a little bit of spirit gauge, allowing you to perform another martial art straight away. And finally, make sure you always cast your lightning weapon spell. This is your main way of dealing damage, and its elemental damage goes past enemies' blocks, which is fantastic. That wraps up our Unparalleled Spear build. We have a couple more builds coming for you guys, including a Stealth Assassin build and a Toxic Boss Killer, so stay tuned for those among other builds. Also be sure to bookmark the Wolong Fallen Dynasty wiki. We have everything from the game on that wiki currently, including all the weapons, all the boss fights, all the armor sets. So if you want to like theory craft or take a look at those things before you get too far into the game or you need some help, make sure you check it out.